Um, hey everybody, welcome back to Fed Up. Today joining me are Christian and Jenny from the River. It's great to have you both. And how are things this evening?
Warm. It's
Yeah,
toasty.
yeah. I was just saying to Christian before we went live, is it warm down your way? Because it's got so humid up here and it's just walking and you're sweating. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. I just went to the gym before this and the air conditioning
Um,
is broken. Not fun.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Yeah, I was just telling Christine a story about that as well, about one of the
I really
places I train at that doesn't have air conditioning, and even with all the windows and doors open, it's still horrible. And
mhm.
it's just like a sweat box, which not
Yeah.
ver- not pleasant.
No, ew.
Yeah. So I guess jumping straight into things, your album Hollow Full of Hope. I just wondered what inspired the title for that, and how long did it take for you both to envision the title for the album?
Um, we were really struggling with album titles. Um, we just couldn't think of anything. I can't for the life of me remember where it came from. We wanted something with a bit of assonance to it,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but other than that, I did. There was the last Ian Rankin book was a heart full of headstones, and I think maybe that got caught in the mind somewhere. Yeah, that's all I can really remember. I was reading that book at the time.
Right.
Maybe that kind of somehow influenced it. But,
And I was reading about the holloways, so the sort of hollowed out ancient walkways in Dorset and places like that. And
Right.
that maybe sneaked through as well. So yeah,
Mm.
kind of a combination of things, I think.
No, it's really interesting because there's so many. When I first read the title, I thought there's so many avenues for interpretation from this. You like the hollow earth theory as well, and as you said about hollowed out walkways. So that really had me thinking already before I even actually started listening to the music. Um, so yeah, that's very interesting to hear. Um, the thing as well that stood out to me when I was listening to the album, I would imagine you probably get this a lot from people. I found it, and this isn't a bad thing, very hard to put a genre on the music, actually, in a sense. People are saying it's post doom, and I was like, well, I can hear so many other areas of music within this. There's some very beautiful, serene, slow music. Then obviously the riffs coming in on some other songs. And I thought I wouldn't know how to describe it. So is this? I know the band has been around, a long time now. So have you always done this as musicians and artists, drawn in from all these different influences and let the sound develop naturally, or was there a conscious thought to bring in? No, we want this influence from this area coupled with this perspective.
It's funny you say about the genres because it's
Mm.
confusing a lot of reviewers as well. People are like, what is it? We don't know.
well, it's getting a lot of flack for not being metal.
Mm.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, that's neither one thing or another. I think that says more. There's more about a reviewer if they can review it for what it isn't,
Yeah.
what it is, But I mean,
Yeah.
to get back to the question, we've always just let things be themselves and they just become what they are. Um, I've always just listened to what I've listened to. I mean, obviously, when I was a lot younger, um, I listened to more metal than I do now. But I've always listened. I probably hear so many people say the same thing, that they listen to lots of other different stuff as well, and it starts
Mm.
creeping up. And I think it's just the old adage that there's the stuff you like and the stuff you don't like, and it will be a combination of all the stuff that we like that's come up. We've never had a set goal, aside from when we started out, when we were like, yes, we're doom metal and we're playing doom metal, because everyone starts out in that kind of way.
Yeah.
After almost 25 years or whatever it is, after 4 albums, you're kind of going to be yourself.
Yeah.
you stop having influences because you're growing yourself as a person and as a musician. So you don't really look at other people and go, I want some of that. I want to. When you start out, you do. You know, this is the Bitus bit, this is the Candlemass bit, this is the Count Raven bit. But as you get older, it's just starts becoming whatever comes out when you sat down with a guitar, and that's kind of the end of it.
So it's a bit like it's a journey of evolution. You know, how we're constantly growing as people as well. The music is doing the same, matching us on that journey that we're going through life. And I think that's very, very, it raised some very interesting points, because I feel, and I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't ever in my death metal, there's law and nothing else is real syndrome. I'm not going to do that. You know, I love my hardcore, I love my punk, my grindcore, all my extreme noise, but I do like other music. It all falls under the umbrella. And one thing, yeah, I'm rambling, folks. One thing I've noticed though with a lot of artists and bands is they are starting now to say, hey, we are going to play this. It's okay to like other music as well, or draw on these influences. I think people have got tired of the elitism. I'm not saying that's not still around. Of course, you still come across it, but I had this conversation with a guy who was on last night, a guitarist, and we were talking about metal. You know, it's well known for all the subgenres and influences it can bring in. And we were saying how you've kind of got now the electro metal that's been around for a few years, and we're interested to see how that will go. And it would be cool if someone made a documentary in so many years' time looking at some of the newer genres and saying, look, well, this is how this became amalgamated within the scene. And I do think you're right. If someone isn't going to look at the music and open their ears and mind and judge it for what they're hearing in front of them and appreciating the art and saying, look, they've brought in this, and this is their vision. You know, this, as you said, that says a lot. You can get a word in edgeways now. So you got to shut up.
Yeah, I mean, anything if you're a reviewer or you're a critic, you should be reviewing something and criticizing something on its own merits and its own terms. And if you think that what the album or the art or the movie, the book, whatever it is, if you feel it hasn't accomplished what it set out to do, then obviously you're going to be critical of it, and that's going to be a fair assessment of it. And obviously, you know, you want people to criticize it, because the worst criticisms in the entire world are the ones you agree with. When someone holds up a mirror and says, right, that was out of time, that could have been lighter, heavier area, that could have been quicker, that could have been slower, you could have had another vocal melody there, I can hear this, I can hear that. If you ran out of time in the studio to do the vocal melody, or you didn't have the time to fix the amp, or you know, to get different guitar sound, and someone pulls it up on the album, they're the ones that hurt, and they're the ones that are worth listening to. Whereas if someone just says, I expect my music to sound like this, I know what's what, and this is not what I'm into and not what I like, it's like, well, you're saying more about yourself than you are the music.
Their own,
I mean, you're allowed an opinion, but if you're gonna be if it's so off brand, why are you wasting your time even mentioning it? Surely there are more deserving bands out there that are on brand, so just mention them, because you're not doing anyone you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing the bands that you're not being genuinely critical of any favors.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I remember being younger and being like, I don't like XYZ genre, whatever it might have been at the time, and everyone was like, no, this is what I like. And I think one of the best things I learned as a musician, I can't remember who said it, some famous guitarist was basically saying, don't say no to being offered the opportunity to play with any other musicians. So like, I don't know, if a country musician says, oh, come and do some violin on this. And you go, oh, I don't like country. It doesn't matter, because you can learn something from it. So everything I hear now, no matter what it is, even if I think don't particularly like that, I'll go, yeah, but what are they doing with the bass? And that's a really interesting rhythm there. And you can kind of just find things to enjoy in it.
That,
what you get out of something is what you get as well. Because if someone just listens to nothing but brutal death metal, and that sees them through the day, and that makes them feel 50 foot tall when they go to a gig, and it takes them away from everything, then that's valid. Do you know what I mean? You are allowed to have a very, you know, your opinion that you know what's what, and you only love that sort of stuff is equally as valid as someone saying, I love all this stuff. Because it's just what you get out of it, which is the important thing. Not what it is or what it isn't.
Yeah, you're both. I concur, and you raise some interesting points in your answers because, yes, people may get a shock sometimes. Some who know me and be, well, you're interviewing bands and people outside of all the noise you listen to, and so yes, I do like a lot of those brutal death as well. Yes, I do, but it doesn't mean that I don't like other music or that I'm not thinking, I want to give this a chance. I want to learn something about it or open myself up to it. And
you might after all that, you might give it a go and go, no, I was right.
Yes, but it's funny when I did do the brief writing reviews, which always turned into my eccentric naughty curse fest sometimes with a vivid imagination. That's the punk rebel in me, I guess. But if I ever got something where I thought, I don't like this, or this isn't music I normally listen to, I'd really listen more intently than I would do to music that I actually like, because I try and find something that is positive in there. There will be something what they're trying to do, like you were saying, Jenny. Is there this theme in it? Is there this influence? Okay, the drum's good in this area. There will always be something. Okay, you can get bands of any genre where sadly it totally sucks and you're at a loss. But there's always something there. And it was the reason, one of the reasons behind doing this show, as we were chatting about, off air, is, yeah, I could just sit here and talk to hardcore, crust punk, D-beat, grind, death metal, and thrash nonstop. Okay, that's fantastic. It's a lot of my favorite music, but it gets boring. That's no disrespect to those scenes, but it's all the... And I want to be wider than that. And I'm interested in talking to people. So I thought, no, this time, starting over again, let's open it up to everything and anything. And hey, if I come across music that is something I don't like, it doesn't matter. There will be something we've got in common as people. I'm still interested in the creative process behind it. And as you said, even if it's a country singer, and country is something I really can't get into, but I wouldn't, if they said, hey, I want to come on and chat about my country album, I'd say, yeah, fine, come on there. It's opening us up, and it's growing as well instead of staying one-dimensional. And I think as musicians, and this is a perfect excuse to ask for me to ask. So where do you both draw all of your inspirations from writing and playing your instruments as well, and the singing, of course?
Who wants to go first?
Loaded question.
Well, when it comes to writing the stuff, I literally just sit down, and what comes out at the right time comes out. I think, and unless you're doing it for a living, where you're expected to, like if you're writing, if you've been hired to write for a pop singer, for example, or if you do soundtracks, then you're writing very much to type. You have to write a certain thing that follows a certain structure over a certain period of time. And I think when you're writing your own music, there's nothing more to you than just sort of sit down and letting it come out. You don't have those boundaries, which means you can just sit there and noodle about on a guitar, and then when something turns up, it turns up. And that's kind of the end of it for me, really. I do find 2 or 3 songs turn up at the same time. You're right. You'll come up with one thing, and then another thing generally follows it.
There's a particular guitar which we found in a charity shop, and it needed a little bit of TLC. Bless it. It wasn't very well, but it's now a lovely little thing. And for some reason, that one just seems to bring songs with it. It's just really comfortable to play.
There you go.
You kind of go into a bit of a zone. Yeah, meet the El Nino. It's so sweet. It's a little
Oh, the boy, yeah.
He's so tiny. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
cute.
a whole back thing. But yeah, just really nice guitar to play. And yeah, just kind of go into a little bit of a trance, and then songs happen. So yeah, there we go.
So it's very much as well a natural process coming from that feeling and that mood. And you know, once that comes, I ask bands this question a lot. Do you then fully write out the song and try and play the song, or just little bits here and there and come back to it until it's finished?
Yeah, so a lot of it will be based on. So Christian will essentially kind of come up with the core of the song. We'll often kind of noodle around it on guitars a little bit. We've got a few different options with tunings and things, because Chris plays a really low tuned guitar a lot of the time. I play sort of standard, but with little tweaks here and there. So I'll drop the G to F sharp or B to C to get certain chords and things. So yeah, we'll often play around with bouncing the guitars off each other and things. And then yeah, melodies tend to kind of flow from there. So yeah, lyrical content will kind of come together. Yeah, we sort of end up with a finished song, but I can never quite remember how we got there.
That's probably quite a common, when you speak to people, that's probably quite a common thing where they're just like, it just turned up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we finished it.
Yeah, there's been
Don't
a few.
quite know how it ended up. It started there and ended up there.
There's been a few where we've done the whole thing and gotten to a certain point with it. Drum tracks are down, guitar tracks are down, and then we go, now we need to move that bit, chop that bit, make that half the length, and then we have to basically, yeah, either re-record things or do some sneaky edits.
Yeah.
Re-record.
Yeah, usually we just re-record.
Yeah.
We're lucky enough that we can do that though. So like 2 of the songs on the album, we changed the verse on Exits, and we changed the middle of the vignette, and we had a day set aside for guitars, and then we had to go in and spend half of that day re-recording the drums.
Yeah.
Even though we'd already done them. and it was just because it's not working. But it's
we like to make our drummer work hard.
Yeah, keeps him in practice.
Well, he works sometimes. Sometimes he needs to calm down a little bit. But we're quite lucky that we can simply say the melody's changed ever so slightly. So can you just do this, and can you just do that? I'm going to do that, and Jenny's going to do that. And it's quite quick to just say, can we just quickly change it? Because it's not like, you know, I'm pretty sure if we were a grindcore band and you got 30 riffs in 30 seconds, you'd probably have a lot of trouble suddenly going, yeah, you know that bit. We need to change that.
Yeah. Point onto the microseconds.
Yeah, whereas this one, it's like everything's exactly the same, but you play that instead there.
Also, sometimes we'll record things, the album will be out, and then because we're rehearsing and gigging, they kind of change a little bit. So we've got a couple of cheeky live versions coming out soon.
Well, one.
Yeah. And it's basically a new version. Well, not new, it's just slightly kind of rearranged version of one of the album tracks.
A bit like an alternative take.
Yeah.
It's just it's from the last album, and it had at the end it's the song Passing from the last album, and it's got like a mellotron and some acoustic guitars and stuff over the end, which we can't do live, obviously. And so it just got tweaked ever so we were trying to find a way to do it, and it got tweaked, and it started becoming another song in its own right, even though it's the same song. But it just took on a different part.
Yeah, sort of just reworked end section, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to replace the fact that we can't get all that sort of extra instrumentation that we get a bit overexcited by in the studio sometimes.
I was just wondering this, just listening to your answers there. And this is my nerdy imagination thinking, I'm gonna put these ideas in your head. Well, I suppose I'm okay, maybe I am. I just got this thing in my head, this visual image of I don't know if you ever have. Have you ever played anywhere like in a, you know, in a medieval castle or really old theatre or old cellar or something? Because I think your sound in that kind of environment would be pretty special for people to hear.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, very atmospheric.
Yeah.
If you know, tell us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like, anyone in Redcar knows.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I have to get a fed up sideline there, fed up castles or something. Yeah, when I was talking to Zach last night, he brought up Opeth because we were talking about guitarists and people going from clean to harsh vocals. And I was mentioning when I saw Opeth in Leeds a long time ago, and I always remember they played in this. I think it was like it was underneath the main bridge that went over into the train station, and it was like all in the dark, and it was kind of like a huge cellar, I guess. And it was really haunting. The sound in it was like reverberating around from the walls, and it was one of the specialist gigs I've been to. So that was pretty awesome. One question, and I want to well, be many more questions of mine about. Calm down, guys. I'm getting excited. Sometimes my mind races that fast, quicker than my actual mouth. Yeah, there's a disclaimer already. Before we get into talking about the actual songs, and I saw on the new on Sky News the other night, and you know we've seen AI in the headlines a lot, and there was a report that was talking about people possibly using AI to rip off someone's voice and music. Myself and Zach, we were talking about it last night. I'm probably going to ask a lot of people about this. So, how do you both feel about that? Because in one sense, it's interesting how AI could be used in a positive sense, but I mean, the kind of dark sci-fi angle, yes, is scary, but could that be a whole other kind of horrible hole open up for you as artists, where you could have someone then potentially rip off your voice, rip off the music, and say, "Hey, here's a song that the River did," or whatever. When no, you haven't. That's not you at all. So, you know, is this a problem that artists could face in the near future? Or I think at the moment we just don't know.
It's absolutely fascinating. I sort of work in tech, and yeah, there's a lot of talk of AI. And I think there's pros and there's cons. I think using it as a tool for the end purpose of your own creativity could be really interesting. However, we did, just as an experiment, see if we could get it to help us work on lyrics. It was a bit obsessed with Moonlight, and it couldn't do anything that didn't rhyme, so it was like a bit nursery rhymey. So we're not worried about that. I think, to be honest, the sort of human element for any of the kind of music that I guess we do and other bands do, people are going to want to see live music and things. And I mean, there's all the amazing kind of, like the ABBA thing that's out at the minute, where sort of holograms and cleverness.
Yeah.
There's always that, but then I think people are still going to want to see real humans do real music, no matter what that is.
The ABBA one was ABBA though, wasn't it?
Was it?
Because they did a performance and then they captured that performance.
Right.
So, you know, like
yeah.
I mean, you would know, motion capture.
Yeah.
With computer games and things like that. ABBA actually, it was all motion capture.
Right.
The hologram. So technically, it is still there. Yeah. And apparently, they did actually have a live band as well. So whilst ABBA was rejected, it was a genuinely live band.
Okay, well, forget that example then. If there was like a complete CG fake kind of one, then yeah, I guess it's the knowing whether it's fake or not. I think that's where the problem starts to come in, isn't it?
I think you'll definitely miss the human element though, because you'll miss the inflections in the voice. You'll miss the natural breakup of the voice. It'll be too perfect. It'll be too cut. There's no way you'd be able to, like, people can't replicate tape hits properly at the moment. Like, they're really close with plugins to replicate tape hits, but
it's all right. We had a cat jump on somebody live on a show some years ago, so don't worry.
Molly, put your bum away, lovely.
But yeah, there'll be a song. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
you won't get the vocal.
Soul's a really good word, actually. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you won't get the subtle things that make everyone different. Everything will be too regimented and too uniform and too specific. You know.
So do you think then, as you said, people still want that human element, so they want that authenticity, that interaction from engaging with real people. And again, this is something I've been chatting about with people as well recently. Do you think then, and again, this is not to bash anybody's taste, they can like, whatever they like. But are people starting to get a bit tired of all the manufactured pop music? I'm not saying all of it is bad, but there's a lot of disposable, soulless music there, which doesn't really have much substance. And I think this is what are people now starting to gravitate more towards bands like yourself and independent music as a whole, because there's something just a little bit more real contained within the sound, within the songs and music.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, do you know what? There's probably always going to be a place for everything. And yeah, I guess the balance is always going to shift from one to another. It's easy from a kind of, I'm not going to say how old I am, but looking at the youth of today and thinking, oh, all the music they like's all manufactured. And
Fucking mad, eh?
no, exactly. But I think every generation's always said that kind of thing, and say it's going to be like waves and peaks and troughs. And, yeah,
you're always going to get teenagers who want to pick up a guitar as well,
Mm.
or drumsticks, or keyboard, or who enjoy singing. Like when you're little, you like making a noise and being creative and doing things, don't you? So when you get older, that sense of wonder gets taken away from you unless you make a concerted effort to keep hold of it, or unless it's genuinely hard. So yeah, it's nice that it's easier to make music nowadays. You can record something in your front room, and it will sound absolutely fine, and so in that way, any sort of what would be the word? Any sort of
Lolly, do you know the word? No.
You know what I mean? Computers and electronics and what have you. That makes life so much easier. You can demo stuff, you can record stuff, and kids growing up with that as well, it will encourage them to be more creative because it will be easier and it's cheaper. Back when we were young, you had to find 200 quid out of 3 months' dole money to go and record a demo. Which people don't necessarily need to do nowadays.
Tascam multi-tracks with tapes.
I think people as well will always want to seek out good music from all eras, or even seek it out for the history behind that particular scene to learn more. The reason I ask is it's just from conversations I've had with people both through the shows and in real life across many generations, and those who tend to be in more alternative music. And I guess maybe this is a view that we have in the alternative scene, where a lot of them are, my God, all the pop music is so bad now, it's getting even worse and worse. So I was just curious with your take on that. Just to jump into the songs, because people have been wondering, is he actually ever going to ask them about the album? Yes. We go all over the place, folks. So so the opener, Fading, could you tell us a little bit about when you first got the idea to write that song, what inspired it and how that came together?
Again, it was just a handful of chords on the guitar, which had a natural melody to it. You could just hear a natural melody. I remember when I played it with Jenny, she said it was. She said it sounded a bit low to her for her vocals, kind of. So we capoed it up, and it suddenly became sort of quite bright and quite nice. And then it sort of became. It was one of those things where the chords were doing enough on their own, so it was just like, well, might as well just see what we can do with these chords. It doesn't need any more. You know, it doesn't need a tempo change. It doesn't need a key change or anything. You just need to build it. And the initial idea was just to have the one guitar at the start, and then bring in the second guitar, bring in the bass chords. And the idea initially was for it to get louder and louder because it's quite quiet, and the idea was to build it.
It was going to go heavy at the end, wasn't it? Was it?
I don't know. It was going to have. I don't know about heavy, but the sound was going to get thicker. It was going to get louder, and it was going to build. And then when we were recording it, Jenny was doing the piano. She was like, "I can't think of anything more to do than just this. Anything I do, everything's starting to trip
Felt like
over.
it was too much.
Yeah,
it needed the space. So yeah,
everything was tripping over itself." And I was in the mixing room with the engineer Bill, and I was playing it on acoustic guitar, whilst Jenny was in the room trying to figure out some parts. And I kept saying to Bill, "It sounds so much better acoustic." And I just repeated saying, "It sounds so much better acoustic," for like an hour or so. And Bill was like,
"Can we do it acoustic?"
Yeah, Bill was like,
"Yeah, give me a hint."
Yeah, he's just like, "Well, if it sounds better acoustically, why are we wasting time? We might as well just record it acoustically." And I was like, "All right then." And we had an hour left on the day that we recorded it. So I went in and recorded the acoustic parts to it, and the next thing you know, Jenny's like, "Well, I can put these vocal harmonies on it now, and I can add this to it, and we can put that extra guitar part there, and it's all got the space that it needs, and it all sounds fine." It's almost like the obvious, easy, most, it's Occam's razor, the easiest one, the obvious one is the one to use. And then the only part that we used that was originally recorded is the backwards electric guitar. That goes all the way through it. So that was the original electric that I'd recorded, and so we just reversed it, and then just left that playing in the background behind the acoustic, and it just separated everything out to give it a bit of space.
It's interesting. So what inspired the title, and what themes does the song represent? The fading, for example, is it about how existence fades over time?
It's just the word association more than anything.
Quite often it's like words almost end up like kind of, this is going to sound really poncy, but just sort of brush strokes of some sort of almost abstract image. So yeah, I guess not fully abstract, but it's like little pictures rather than a full what's the word, narrative, if you like. So, little snippets of phrases that just conjure up different images for different people, I guess.
Yeah, so open to interpretation.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. Yeah, and do you what is interesting as well? You mentioned like adding a thick sound, and you can hear that in your music as well in parts where you've got to say, I guess I would have said heavier until you said, but like the meatier parts with the very beautiful, serene, clean, and melodic, and it kind of gives it that really nice partnership. And I've heard other musicians do it, even some melodic black metal, where they've had, for example, like two vocalists, one harsh, and then usually a female vocalist, very beautiful singer, and it seems to make the music very emotional, very expressive. I just wanted to, aside from that one review where the guy just decided he didn't like it, has anybody else ever mentioned anything like that about your music?
What about the juxtaposition?
Yeah, and combining both that thick layer with the more softer side.
A few people have sort of just touched on that. People seem to sort of, again, just mention the space in it a lot of the time. It's almost what's not played sometimes that people seem to pick up on, rather than the actual sort of heaviness, I guess. It's even the more overdriven-y sort of guitar sounds, they're nowhere near the sort of level that we were using previously. We've kept refining different combinations of crazy pedalboard incarnations, and finally hit on one that kind of lets us play the kind of chords with a lot more weird notes in them, if you like. Whereas sounds that we were using previously, we kind of had to simplify the chord because otherwise it just ends up sounding really muddy. So yeah, it's been an interesting adventure.
Yeah, a journey for sure.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that there's kind of a bit of both and sometimes both at once. So we've got some
yeah,
pretty light stuff going on, but with some bit more meaty, like you said. Although we shouldn't say meaty because we're both vegan. So.
you will.
Tofu.
Yeah. We'll do.
Meaty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Northern barbarian habit popping in, isn't it? So yeah, moving on to the second track on the release, Exits. I just wondered if you could share with us again, and this is what I want to ask you about these songs, how you came up with the ideas, if there's any themes, what they represent, what inspired them. So has Exits got any any personal meaning to it, or something from an experience that influenced the song?
Not really. Again, sort of musically, it was just what came out on the guitar at that. I mean, that one came out really, really quickly. That was like quicker to write than it is to play. It just sort of boom, it was done. Lyrically, Steve had an idea. Steve's very good at coming up with ideas, getting other people to figure them out. So he came up with this idea yonks ago. He was like, I'm going to write a ghost story. It's going to be like this 3-part kind of thing. And he had this, I don't know where it's at the moment, but he was like, we should do something with it and we should write something with it. And we could maybe, if it's not a concept album, we could, like Iron Maiden used to do concept albums, but concept albums because like 1 or 2 songs had absolutely nothing to do with whatever the concept. He was like, we could do that. We could do a concept album. But it wouldn't be a concept album. I was just like, look, if you want to write something down or you want to write some lyrics, go ahead. And he was like, no, I've got this idea for a ghost story. And that was around the time that Exits was real. So some of the lyrics are sort of written with the idea that Steve was actually going to give us a story. Right. So, and he never bothered. So, right. So they just ended up as word associations again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe the story will appear on the next release, possibly, or something.
Well, we were in talks a little while ago with another band who wanted to do this, which I should really follow up, and they wanted to do something fairly collaboratively. And I said, Steve's had this idea about, a ghost story. Why don't you do a couple of songs? Why don't we take the first half of the story, you take the second half, or vice versa? And they were like, yeah, really good idea. But it's not been followed up. So I don't know if that'll happen or not.
Is there, though, with that being said, are there any particular ghost stories or horror stories that you both would maybe like to do a musical interpretation of?
That's difficult because the problem is ghost stories are one of my favorite things in the entire world. So I don't know that we could do one justice.
I think we could grab the atmosphere and the sort of feelings of one and use that as the inspiration. Because there's
that would be cool.
The old kind of Victorian ghostwriters, like James and things. I think there's a lot to be grabbed, like atmosphere, and location, and vibe-wise, that sort of thing.
None of the Hollywood demonic possession kind of stuff, like a proper ghost story where
the brooding kind of brittle, cold English ghost stories. We like them.
With the grimness and suspense.
The walls and the flickering candle lights.
Yeah. Don't those stories though, and even the movies when they show like the classics, I watch. I mean, okay, there's some terrible movies on there. They're still entertaining. I watch a lot of Legends and Horror Extra when I can on TV for that reason, because it shows you a lot of classic cinema that I haven't seen before. But and I noticed again when I was talking with somebody else recently about this. Not only do they have the atmosphere, as we said, and that build up and that suspense where you know there's danger is coming. When that family arrives, particularly I noticed with the original Dracula with Christopher Lee, when he was facing off with Peter Cushing, it's not like, you know, you see in some of the Hollywood movies where it's just, I'm going to walk, and they can walk at the speed of light and they still catch them. Well, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, they were chasing each other everywhere. And yes, I know the effects then were they didn't have the same what we have now, but I feel they put more into portraying that sense of danger, where if you were in that castle with Dracula, he's not just going to walk towards you, he's going to chase you everywhere, and you know, if he catches you, you are in serious big trouble. Then with the atmosphere as well, and I thought it was fantastic. And from a musical point, again, injecting my nerdy imagination here, you're playing one of those, I know, Fed Up Castle in the future or something, and that steam and fog can rise from the ground upwards, and you could have the effects of crows if you're playing on Dartmoor, for example, something like that. Yeah. That'd be cool. Under the basketballs tonight, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the old films and TV series, there were actual storylines there. You know, it wasn't like, here's a setting, here's a demonic possession, here's a load of jump scares, the end, which is what a lot of films are nowadays. I mean, like you said, if you look back at like you know, Dead of Night or Night of the Demon from the 50s, and the special effects are obviously lacking because of what they could do with it at the time, but the storytelling is so good. Like, you know, you've got the atmosphere, and it's tense as well. You know, particularly Dead of Night. The last story on Dead of Night with the ventriloquist, I mean, it's incredibly tense.
They're engrossing. There's something about them. If you start watching them within 2 minutes, you're hooked, and you want to see how this story pans out. And I think that's why I find them so intriguing. There is a festival actually down your way. Well, there's two. There's Fright Fest, and then one ran by the horror magazine Dark Side, I think Dark Side Fest. And I've always wanted to go because they have not only, you know, obviously a current cinema, but a lot of people involved with those classics. And I thought, God, it would be so fascinating to talk to them, how they came up with the stories, basically how they scared people to death, I guess, with limited means back then.
A good story and good acting as well. You know, you remember the actors would have invested fully in what they were doing, because it's still, you know, 50s, 60s, it's still relatively fresh medium.
Yeah.
You know, you're only 40, 50, 60 years into cinema at that point, you know. So you've got to invest in what you're doing, whereas nowadays it's just like, here's a shed load of money, here's what we're making, and then people just turn up and, you know, you've got to look scared, you've got to jump every now and again, you know, and that's the end of it. There's no heart in it.
Yeah.
We do want to try and do some sort of more ghosty story thing for one of our videos, because we've done a couple of videos for various tracks of the last album and this album now. But yeah, we haven't really tackled anything spooky. So I think that's the next one.
Yeah, I'm really interested now. You've certainly fired up my imagination with this, and you're definitely right. They're going now for more the shock value, the jumps. I mean, the most frightening thing recently that probably one of my friends has experienced is the cinema when I get lost for 15 minutes to go in the wrong screen and sit next to somebody and then say, "Oh, you're not Dean. I'm in the wrong." I've actually done that a few times. It's like some guys looking at you, who's this weirdo?
And then what you do is you take your glasses off, there's a puff of smoke, and you've got
Yeah. Do a cape effect. Yeah, old school, definitely. So, you know, it brings us back to tiny ticking clocks. Now, that again had a visual impact on me, both not just with the music, but the title, because it made me think of, you know, there's all huge Victorian clocks, grandfather clocks as well. And I just wondered if, was that the, I'm probably going to be way off, but what the hell, I'm going to ask it. Was that the inspiration behind that song? Or again, was it another one that just manifested and
Well,
yeah, I mean, musically, again, it just manifested.
yeah.
Lyrically, it's the only one that's got a vague theme, and it's actually about adopting older cats.
Ah,
And how, you know, you invest a lot of time, a lot of money adopting a cat that might be 12 or 13. Just make sure they, you know, they have a good retirement kind of thing. And you know you're only going to get 4 or 5 years out of them, maybe a bit longer. Oh, she's off.
She said we're talking.
she's cats are super smart as well.
Yeah, you let the public know that I'm off. She's like, no, I'm a kitten, honestly.
Yeah.
She's 15.
She's 16.
She's 16. Okay, she's 16. Yeah, she's gone.
But yeah, it's about the fact that you know you've only got for a very short space of time, and yet you know you've got to make them comfortable and they've got to be fine. I mean, everyone wants a kitten if you're getting a cat, but you know, there's plenty out there who need a home because someone's emigrating or someone's splitting up, or you know, some poor sod's died.
Yeah.
And there's just this poor cat that needs a home, you know. So I'm quite happy getting an old cat and spending whatever spare money I've got, just making them comfortable until their time comes.
Well, cats are very smart, but I used to have 2 stray cats that came to visit me, and I fed them, and I can't help it. I even have a crow. I've talked about this a lot recently. I even have a crow, and this crow is a character. It will land, it will caw, it will see me in the kitchen, and it will caw until I come out and give it some water, give it some food, and I do. And he hops back and forth, and then he kind of, once he's finished, he'll like caw at me, and then he flies off. And I think particularly if you can show some kindness to animals, because there's also so many abandoned, you know, in the shelters, sadly a lot treated very cruelly. So yeah, that's very, very nice and genuine and kind to hear as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people who don't treat animals in general for what they are. They're sentient beings, and
Yeah.
you know, those that need a home, that are, you know, domesticated animals, are always going to need a home. A lot of people get them just because they look right, they're cute and cuddly. Not so much for cats.
No, ungrateful
but
little
you get
wotsets.
no, but you get
Waking
people,
us up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Hey.
but I mean, you get people who get dogs, and it absolutely has to be like, at the moment it's or it was French bulldogs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone has to have a French bulldog, and it's got to be the right colour. You've got to spend 2 or 3 grand on it. It's like, just go to the shelter and see which one you make a connection with and give him home.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that need it.
Yeah, and they will return that love as well, because when they know someone is going to love them and take care of them, it's because they've often either been abandoned or through not very nice experiences. They're more than happy to have that new home with someone.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of people who are just like, oh, cats are so selfish, they just do this and they just do that. And I've never met a cat that hasn't been anything other than wanting a bit of attention and deserving a bit of attention. Whenever I've seen people who have got cats and they're like, oh, well, cat just hides under there and it just comes out when it's hungry and when it wants to use the tray or whatever, it's like, well, you're kind of being a bit overbearing with it, and you're sort of poking at it. You just leave them alone. Let them be them.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. You know, the fault is possibly not the cats in this.
Yeah, it's like with anything. If you show something that love, that nurturing care, and even houses, you know, and you go in a house and you can tell there's been a lot of love in that house because you pick up those warm vibes and energy. And then if it's somewhere where it's maybe been something where a tragedy has happened, there's this bit of bleakness and unhappiness, and almost as we're talking about ghosts, can sometimes give you that feeling as if literally something has just made the hairs go back on, stand up on the back of your neck. There's an unpleasantness there. So yeah, I definitely can relate to what you're saying. So was this quite a quick song as well that you recorded?
This one was actually.
It just all came together in the studio.
Yeah, nothing was rewritten 5 minutes after we actually done.
Yeah, stayed in the same format.
Yeah.
There was an amazing Fender Rhodes in the studio. I think that was kind of the thing that gave it that sort of continuum of warmth, if you like. And that was one of the first things we put down on that track, wasn't it? Off the guitars.
Yeah, it was going to be an accordion initially.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was because the note's quite sparse. We were going to have an accordion sort of humming all the way through it, playing the root notes. And then when I was recording the guitars, I hadn't spotted it because in the room there's like amps piled up here, there, and everywhere. There's an upright piano. And I glanced over and there was a Rhodes behind the door. I hadn't spotted it because whenever I've been in there before, the door had been open, so it's in front of it. Because the door was closed because I was recording. I was like, oh, there's Rhodes. That would probably sound a lot better than an accordion. So that was that. But yeah, that's the only thing that, when we went in to record, that was the only thing that changed. We just decided to use one instrument instead of another. But other than that one stayed the same.
So do you do it the way then where you have your music recorded first, and then do you add the vocals over it, Jenny, or are there times when you've got a melody, a harmony, say you've sang some lyrics and you're like, well, and do you take that to the rest of the band and say, well, what can you add to my vocals?
I haven't done yet. I think that would be a fun thing to do. It's probably my fault because I also do my own sort of acoustic singer-songwritery stuff. So if I've come up with a melody, I've stolen it from myself. So not that to do, Jennifer. Sharing is
plagiarizing yourself.
And also because Chris is so ahead of the game, he's always got so many more ideas. So the instant we're starting to record one album, he's already got the whole next one kind of just in his head. So yeah, there's a bit of a backlog to get through with the moment.
That must be so. That is both interesting, but sometimes that must be. Is it a hindrance sometimes, Chris? Because I ask bands all the time. I'll say, "Have you started work on the next album yet? Do you have any ideas in mind?" And some will be, "Yeah, we've got a bit down," or "Yeah, we think we know where we're going," or "We've got some leftover material," or "There, no, not yet. We're going to focus on this release," which is fine. I understand that. I think you're the first person I've ever spoken to where I've heard that you've got all of these ideas bustling all the time. So is that sometimes can it be a hindrance as well, where you're thinking, God, I've got so much, I want to get this all out?
It's not so much a hindrance; it's more frustrating because it's my thing is once it's done, on to the next one. But obviously, once it's done, you have to put the packaging together, and then it has to go out, and the PR have to do their job, and so on and so forth. And my thing is, the minute I've got something finished, or the minute it's done, I'm like, it's done. And I'm like, right, what's next? And it's more sort of frustrating that I have to wait to, because it's even frustrating that where I've got it all up here and I can hear it all up here. Like the next album's already up here and on my phone as well, acoustically. It's sort of frustrating that there's songs that have been knocking around for like, you know, a year or 18 months that haven't been recorded, and it's like they're there. You just need to learn them all, and you know, it's difficult to not get ahead of yourself.
I think part of the challenge has been studio time. So obviously everyone's got day jobs and all sorts of things, and then finding time where the studio's actually available as well. And then the mixing, which was done afterwards, was a whole nother kind of logistical challenge. So it's been quite a long process from start to finish. Whereas obviously some bands go into the studio for a block booking of 2 weeks and that's it. They just record everything, they mix it, then it just needs mastering and then job done. Ours was a very kind of bits and pieces when we could fit it in kind of process, which is interesting. And I think that's why we end up with so much of a kind of backlog of new songs.
Yeah. Well, that's I think I used the wrong word, hindrance there. That's good going forward. Obviously, never short of any future material. But very, very interesting. So, bringing us to Viginet, could you tell us a bit about when you first started writing that song, getting the music together, the vocals as well, and what inspiration and ideas are involved?
So that one came out. That got written around the same time as Exits. And then the title, Getting Back to Ghost Stories, is the last ever story that M.R. James wrote. But it's got nothing to do with it lyrically.
No.
It's just that we needed a title, and that's what I was reading at the time.
It's a scene, a snapshot, I guess, isn't it?
It
suits the.
It's funny. The lyrics came from a couple of books that I was reading on the way to work at the time. Well, the first it wasn't meant to be like this, but it ended up being almost they were just wordplays, and then it's kind of got a theme of just getting older. Because the first verse came from a quote from the TV series Kidding. I don't know if you ever saw that.
What was that? Sorry.
It was called Kidding. It had Jim Carrey in it. He played. It was on Sky Atlantic, I think.
All right, I'll look that up.
It's really good.
Yeah, I like Jim Carrey.
Straight. So
it was done. The main producer, and he directed a couple as well, was the same bloke who directed Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Right.
And I think he directed Science of Sleep as well. I think that was his first film. I might be wrong. But anyway, the TV series, he plays a kids TV show host, and it's like all been kept in the family. His sister makes the puppets that are on the TV show. His father owns I think he owns the actual channel, and Jim Carrey is the host of it. And the whole thing is that he can relate to everyone,
right?
And literally solve people's problems. Just his very nature as a person. But at the same time, he's grieving the death of a son, and he's going through a divorce as well at the same time. And he can kind of solve everyone's problems, but not his own. And there was a quote where he was talking to his sister, and he said, "Do you ever feel that when you were little, you used to have stones in your pockets, you just skim them across the water, and it used to be so much fun?" He said, "Do you ever feel that you can't get the stones out of your pockets as you're getting older, and it just feels like they're pulling you into the water instead of letting you skip across it?" It just felt quite poignant. So that went in. It was sort of quite a deep metaphor. And then the second verse came about. I was reading the book of I'm Thinking of Ending Things. You know, the Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman.
Was it Charlie Kaufman who did? What's that film with Nicolas Cage in it? With his twin brother.
Oh,
Adaptation.
Yeah.
So he did adaptation of a couple of things like that. But yeah, if you haven't seen I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the film of it's on Netflix, and the book's
Oh,
quite
okay.
but it's good. It's only sort of 170 pages.
Oh,
But
no, I mean,
there's some graffiti in there which I nicked for the first couple of lines, and then I was reading a Nick Drake biography, and there was a discussion about where the term 5 Leaves Left came from for the first album, and the general consensus is because he was a smoker back in the day when you used to get Rizla packet, it would tell you when you had 5 leaves left. But apparently he was also reading a book, and I can't remember for the life of me what the book was called or who wrote it. I just know that a lady wrote it. That's all I can tell you.
right.
But apparently he really loved this book, and there's a part in the book where the lady's talking about there being leaves on an ivy line, and she says that there's 5 leaves left on an ivy line, and she equates it to her friends. And she's like, well, that leaf went when they went, and that leaf went when they went. Who's going to be the last one to go? So that just kind of fitted in with the whole vibe of it. So basically, what I'm saying is I stole all of it, essentially. And yeah, but they all kind of, like I said, they all kind of fit the pattern of getting older.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I'm going to look up that series. I'm intrigued because I think that concept in itself, this guy's got all this weight and baggage that's built up. Ooh. Yeah, I'm trying to behave myself by leaving the movie thon for later, because if I get started on that, that'll be it. Forget talking about the actual music or anything. Yeah, sorry. No, you're fine. I'm terrible. Music, music, movies. I've got such a passion for. I'm obsessed with it, and it's funny that Andy was saying this from The Crawling. Another guy I was talking to, and it's just you get that crossover. I think with film and music, most people you speak to in those scenes or into metal or something, is just that seems to be that close relationship between the two there. Yeah, I'm trying to behave myself because I can feel it building in me. So
I think it's the escapism.
Yeah,
because metal's sort of quite full on.
Yeah.
Music form, and obviously a lot of the lyrics are fantastical. Better way of putting it. I mean, part of the appeal of Iron Maiden, like most people will find Iron Maiden or something like that when they're little, they're like 9 or 10 or 11, however old they are, and it's, do you know what I mean? It's the Riggs cover art, and then it's the fact that they're writing about the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
About the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and then where in times very Ray Bradbury. So it's there's always that link. I think it's an escapism thing.
It definitely is. It's why I even like sometimes watching all of those insanely over the top, exaggerated, silly comedies or silly movies, or even it can be I could be referring to the various sci-fi channel movies where it's something so ridiculous, or an action movie that's so over the top, but it's escapism and that entertainment. And it's light, and there can be like unintentional comedies, the way the dialogue is delivered or a certain scene, and you're like, oh, come on, man, that would not. But it's funny, and I sit there. It's why I like wrestling, because it's so over the top and exaggerated, and the things they do or they come out dressed like, I just sit there in hysterics. It's just like a comedy, and
exactly the same reason. Like, I grew up with the Monday Night Wars, and I was a big ECW fan.
Yeah,
and it is the ludicrousness. Some of the things they do, some of the things they say, and some of the things, like you said, what they wear. Sometimes you're just like, you're taking the piss now.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
My dad got cable back in the early 90s. And I remember my brother watching the wrestling for the first time, and we were all convinced it was completely real. And, yeah, it was really quite disappointing when we were like, oh, they're acting.
I'll tell you what, because we used to watch World of, going back even further to the 80s, we used to watch World of Sport.
Right.
When it was on ITV before it got cancelled.
Right.
After it got cancelled, they showed some. I think that they showed a few weeks of WWF programming before Sky came along and bought up the whole monopoly of anything that was worth having.
Yeah.
And my mum used to like wrestling. My dad used to take the piss out of it royally. Like a battle piece in swimming trunks rolling about in a ring. You know. And then
Sounds great.
Sounds like what you want, doesn't it? But the first thing they showed, WWF thing, it was like highlights of SummerSlam '88, and that's when the Ultimate Warrior splatted Honky Tonk Man, just ended the Intercontinental run. And my dad thought it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. See this, you know what I mean? This Elvis impersonator in the ring gets splattered by these, you know what I mean, fluorescent hair metal bloke all in the space of 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. My dad was like, that's more like it. Now that I like.
My mum is a big fan of AEW, and it's quite funny. You know, I watched them all, AEW, Impact, all of them. And I've got my favourites, and yeah, AEW is probably up there being my favourite. But and it's funny, my mum, the only way she can kind of remember who the wrestlers are in AEW or in any of them is through nicknames, not their actual names, the things that have happened to them. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, there's loads of British wrestlers as well in
there's a lot
all the
of
companies
over there, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, you've got Park. I think is it Kip Saban. I think he's from the New Forest, I believe. So there's loads in there. But I remember, and she's never forgot this incident in the early years of AEW. Chris Jericho had a feud with one of the other wrestlers, Orange Cassidy, and it ended up where he was stood in the ring with some people in his faction. And the amount of money they must have spent on this, but it was worth it because it made me just fall off the sofa laughing with tears. They had something above just open up, and it was a giant shower of Shimosa, you know, orange juice and champagne just completely drowning him all over his hair, all over his jacket. And he stood there and he's still delivering. And I thought that must be in his nose and ears and everything. And I thought, it's never pleasant when that happens if you ever snort an orange juice when you. And I just thought, I just thought, wow. I thought, and this is, I'm guessing, probably had to be done in one take for it to. And my mum, she always now, because she always remembers that, and she's always. The orange jacket show. the orange jacket. It's things like that. Like there was NWA, which is free to watch on YouTube, and it's very low budget. God, it is. They focus, I think, more on the comedy because it is like backyard wrestling that's been filmed really. And there's a guy I actually saw him wrestle before he went to the States. Tom Latimer. He used to be known as Bram in Impact Wrestling. Yeah. Well, he's got very broad Lancashire accents, and in the early days of NWA, he was they have them like talking at this kind of makeshift, I guess, TV kind of stand. You know, they do the trash talking, and this guy did this stupid dance past him. And Tom Latimer just turned around. All you can hear in this broad Lancashire accent, which I'm probably going to butcher, but I'll attempt it, is like, "Get out the way, you daft prat! Bloody hell, move!" And I just thought, anyone from that side of the pond, this is just going to be completely lost. The rest was like, "Oh yeah, that's great."
That was like when Regal was commissioner, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh,
he was so British. So he could get away with so much. I remember when I remember him talking about Trish Stratus's Bristols, which no one in America would have picked up. There's another one where he called Hulk Hogan a 50p tart once. I don't think anyone in America would have picked up.
William Regal as well. He looks like the spitting image of my uncle. So
really?
Yeah. And when he was running NXT, because he came to AEW for a bit and now he's gone back to WWE to work behind the scenes, because I think his son is one of the wrestlers. I think he may be in NXT. It's something like that. And whenever William Regal used to appear in recent events, he it's almost like if he came, appeared on stage, man, and like, where am I? And he always, to me, looked like he'd just come out of the wine club. And it's like, and then he's in his, his really pristine suit as well. And as you said, really over-exaggerating the British, jelly ho, and really, really, really up and down. And I used to sit there laughing. And I think if they use regional curse words from Britain on TV over there, I'm thinking they couldn't get away with that here. So, but over there, we're sat there like, you don't know what that means.
I'm pretty sure he referred to the Godfather's hose as scrubbers as well, which is not even when you hear that often over here, is it?
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, it's like they've got. I'm probably going to upset people in Newcastle here, but you've got Pac, who's in AEW at the moment. And I said to one of my friends the other night, I said, "Do you think when he's with the Japanese and Mexican wrestlers, they can understand him fine compared to everybody else?" Why are you? I'm going to kick your head in.
So Broad Geordie might be a lot closer to Mandarin or something. Then.
Yeah, there's a way to promote myself to like only 30 minutes up the road. It's like, yay, better be careful. So I will take us back to the music. Throw out this, folks. So coming to Hollerful. So it's interesting because it closes out the album. It's got, the album's called a Hollow Full of Hope. The last track, Hollow. So is that is there any meaning with that song? And again, when did you come up with the idea, and how long did it take to write and record the music, and for you, Jenny, as well, to match the vocals with that music?
Wow, there's a cheeky absence of vocals on that one, but there are quite a lot of violin lines which are sort of taking over what the vocal would have done.
Yep.
So yeah.
I was still looking at Virginia.
So yeah, I guess. No, I'm gonna leave it to Chris.
No, it was again. It was another one. The guitar was just it. That one's in open G, which is a blues tuning traditionally.
Yeah,
the Stones use it. The Black Crowes use it a lot. Low use it as well, and it was one of those things where just the guitar happened to be in that tuning, and I just ended up strumming a pattern, and again a song came out of it. But interestingly enough, I did the guitars in the studio, and Jenny hadn't really. I mean, she'd heard it, but hadn't.
Are you saying I hadn't practiced?
No, we didn't know what you were going to do. So you heard it, you knew that there was possibly going to be piano and violin.
Yeah, and don't worry there, because my mind was still on the other song. That was a question. That was a follow-up question I had. I was going to ask you, Jenny, later. So how do you, as well, match your vocals to the music? And then everything got jumbled in a hyper.
That's all right.
So anyway,
yeah, we'll rewind. It's fine.
yeah, retake. So sorry, Christian, you were saying.
Well, it was just one of those things. We went into the studio, and I put my parts down. And then it was like, piano should probably go all the way through it. See what you fancy doing. Just do what feels right.
It was quite loose and free, that final instrumental one.
And when Jen was she was recording, she was playing the piano trying to find the notes, just sort of plinking away, trying to find some sort of structure.
So I can't technically play the piano. I can find notes, but yeah, can't actually play it. So yeah, it's sometimes a bit challenging finding good piano parts to put down.
Yeah.
But yeah, we recorded it anyway while she was doing it, just for reference, so that Jenny could listen back to it and go, right, we use that bit, I'll use that bit, whatever. And the first thing that she did sounded absolutely fine, so we left it.
Yeah, it just kind of worked, didn't it?
While she was feeling about for ideas, what came out just naturally suited it. And then with the violins, it was just a case of once you found one melody that you're happy with, it's like, how many more do we do?
Yeah, just wanted to kind of lift it a bit at the end. So it starts off with just one and then another one, and sort of layered a little bit just towards the end. That sort of final little piano plink plonk plink. So, round it up nicely. Technical term.
Yeah, what it does, it's an interesting clause, to the album. Very interesting piece of music. So the question that I intended that got jumbled up with the original question, which now I've even forgotten what I've asked. So yeah, it happens with me as well. I just blurt, and then I'm like, oh, what did I ask?
It doesn't have a straight line.
Yeah.
So I think about how the
vocals on
yeah.
Oh, that was it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you is so are there times when you hear that music and you think, right, I know what I'm going to sing and how I'm going to match this in accordance with that music? Or I mean, imagine you get those moments where it's whatever I'm singing just doesn't seem to go. So, but how do you get past that problem as a singer?
It's a really good question. It's funny because if I'm writing a song just kind of on my own with a guitar, it all kind of happens at once. So often I'll be noodling about on the guitar and the melody will come to me, and usually there'll be some just words that fit whatever rhythm of the melody is in my mind, and that will kind of lead me off in a particular lyrical direction. But obviously in the river, we're kind of co-writing a lot of those lyrics and melodies, or Chris will write the lyrics, I'll take them and then fit them to the music, or I'll have an idea for a melody and we'll try and work out how the lyrics fit with that. But yeah, the interesting thing about a vignette was when I first went to record it, I had a particular rhythm in my mind for how to put the words in, and it never quite felt right. And then Chris was listening back to it in the studio and going, if you shorten those words and start the phrase later in the bar, maybe that will work out better. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Why wasn't I doing that naturally? So yeah, that one, it took a lot of work to get all the lyrics to kind of sound right, if you like, against the music rhythmically. But now I really love it, and it's one of my favourite ones to sing, and it feels really natural.
Yeah.
It took a lot of kind of working on the melody and stuff like that to get that one to really work.
Yeah. So was this? I'm just going to turn my camera off just for 1 second. I've noticed because it's gone like horror movie in the background.
Hidden in the dark.
Ghost
I mean, this has happened a lot lately. I've ended up getting that engrossed talking to people, and I forgot that like once it gets past 9 p.m.
The lights. Before we started.
Yeah, it's still technically light outside actually, but that's not reflecting in here. So, just one moment, folks. Reaching across.
I feel like I want the CFAX or teletext music.
You need the no, you need the old BBC.
There we go.
You need the little girl with the puppet.
Yeah, I need something like that, some interlude music or some random elevator tunes or something. I keep thinking for ideas to do like a channel trailer, and sometimes I had one idea. I thought I might at one point maybe ask some friends or people in bands just to do some random shouts, and I put it all together. And then I'm thinking, well, we're going to do some like commercial music or something. This one sounds like Tesco's or something.
So it will knock you something out.
You should run a jingle competition. Your interview.
We'll do your fed up jingle.
Yeah. Maybe do a highlight of things going wrong, asking the wrong questions, or getting everything. But say, hey, this is what you've got to look forward to. Yeah. There's nothing worse as well sometimes when you've got your questions, you've got in mind what you're going to ask, and I had this problem at uni, and you think you've got this wonderful answer, and you start to speak, and then you've got no control of it. It happens sometimes. Your mind just decides, I'm not going to work with you today, and this is the time I'm going to eject. And that is so awesome when that happens.
Literally in the middle of a line, and I go, where am I? What am I doing? What's this instrument in my hands? How does it work? Yeah, it's terrifying. So yeah, I totally feel your pain.
Yeah. That was always funny at uni when that happened as well. And you're just like, you think you're going to come out with this wonderful answer in the class. And you're like, yeah, I've got it. Something like, it's gone. Bye. But yeah,
noted that I made the effort.
yeah, exactly. The thought was there. It didn't appear, but I did have a thought originally. It's vanished, but also, and this is my nerdy imagination going overkill again, the cover, when I first looked at it, and honestly, the golden kind of looks like iron or cross part on the cover. When I first saw that, I thought, and I had to obviously look closely. The first impression I got was like one of the the Anglo-Saxon helms with the gold on them across, and I thought, and that caught my attention. I thought, is it that? And then I looked closer and I thought, oh no, you're seeing things. So I just wondered, how did you all come up with that idea, and the artist that you worked with there? Did it come out pretty straightforward? Because it's quite a nice, beautiful piece. A lot of different color.
Visual reference, but it's the old album.
Ah,
Use your imaginations.
Yeah.
It was one of those things, we were stuck for ideas. So we had all sorts of ideas that we wanted to use. And then
spent ages going out, taking photos, messing about in Photoshop, setting up little studio things in here with light boxes and all kinds of things, and nothing quite worked.
Nothing worked.
Yeah.
I went back through a load of pictures that I had taken.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. It was just it was a double exposure of some seaweed and 2 roses that were wrapped in foil that I found on the shore. The out for a walk about 10 years ago now.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Right.
And it was just, we didn't have anything better. we tried.
It's an honest answer.
we tried desperately to get, to find the right thing, and nothing was working. And then, excuse me, and then that turned up, and it's like, that looks all right. And so it went round the band WhatsApp, and everyone went, yeah, that'll do. And so that's kind of how it happened.
There's a particular artist who we discovered on Instagram and Facebook and things, and we're hoping we can contact her to maybe find out about using some of her artwork for some future releases, which we didn't have a chance to do for this one. But yeah, so again, we've got kind of like a backlog of ideas of things for visuals for the next album and beyond. Not enough albums to
yeah, with all the material, but no, that's really interesting. And now my mind's going blank. That was it. So this is a question that I do ask bands who've been together for a long time. How have you maintained that longevity? To work together, and what advice would you give to somebody who is starting a band and is hoping to stay together for X number of years? I'd imagine compromising, listening to each other's perspectives. Does that all come into play?
I'm the newbie. I've only been in the band 3 years. No, 5 years. 5 years. So I'm going to leave this one to Chris. He's the stalwart in that program.
You've got to remember you were friends first and foremost. And I mean, we're still in the same place that we were before. We rehearse when we can. If we're lucky enough to get a gig here and there, we'll play it. And then when the time's right, we'll record an album. So there was more compromising around the first album, just because we'd lost our drummer. And so I had to do the drums as well as the guitars on the first album. And I had all sorts of ideas about what I wanted to do and where I wanted the music to go. And the other two in the band at the time were very much because they couldn't visualize it. So I would say, look, just don't worry about it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that when we record. You just need to do that, and then you can do that, and maybe we can do some harmonies here and so on and so forth. And because they couldn't visualize it, they didn't want to do it, which meant I had to compromise a lot of the songwriting, a lot of what I had in my mind that I wanted to do, and I think it resulted in a very subtle album.
Right.
What I would say to people who are starting out is, if you've got a clear vision of what you want to do, obviously there's always room for compromise and for collaboration, but don't lose sight of what you want to do, and don't lose sight of the fact that you're all friends and you're all in it for the right reasons when you started out. And we've been quite lucky, because anyone who's left the band has left the band for their own reasons, and there's never been a falling out.
Wow, that's really, really rare.
Yeah, it's strange, but yeah, anyone who's left, I think it's just because anyone who's ended up in the band, and when we formed it, we're all friends.
Yeah.
So, with the exception of Jason, who was friends of friends, anyone who's joined the band has been someone we've already known. Like, Jason's the exception to that rule, but I mean, Jason's been in the band for almost 20 years now himself. So you should never lose sight of the fact that you're working together. It should be fun.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
And if someone's not having fun, or someone's not in a position to be in the band anymore, just don't take it to heart, because the friendship's more important than the music. I mean, obviously music's important. It's something you do, and you do it because because you do it. But yeah, the people are still people, and people have feelings, and people are friends. So as long as you can keep everything in perspective, not take it take the serious things seriously, but don't sweat the small stuff, as it were.
Yeah.
It's that kind of idea. And always be true to yourself. Don't let people tell you that there's a certain way of doing things. You have to do this, you have to do that. This is the way things are done. Because in my experience, you'll be told that by half a dozen different people who all operate in half a dozen different ways. And they go, well, this is how it's done. And it's like, well, they do it that way, and they do it that way, and they do it that way, and everyone's different. So stay true to yourself, and make the decisions that feel the best.
Yeah, that's right. It can only be ourselves. That's a very honest answer. I always put that question to bands who've been around a while. I'm always interested in hearing their take on it. I remember there was the guy I used to talk to from Australia, Luke. He did come on the show, before everything went to hell, I guess. And he was the one who brought this question up, actually. And he was telling me about they were on tour somewhere, and he was again, I'm going to do my really bad accents again, and he was like, yeah. Well, the demon doesn't want me to talk.
Don't do that accent. Whatever you do.
Yeah, you're not a thespian. Forget about it. You're not going to be at the Royal Shakespeare Company or anything.
Oh, we've got to hear it now. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was fun. Well, it was one of the funniest interviews I did, and I hope that the last I heard, he was taking a break from music. But God, I hope he returns to music, because the guy was hilarious. He must have. I think it was about 6:30 a.m. where he was in Australia at the time when he was talking to me, and he was in like this. I think trailer or something, whatever. And he had a parrot in the background. There was cats. There was dogs. His wife was bringing in. All you saw was coffee being delivered. This hand just coming across the screen. And he was a really broad Aussie, but he was so genuine and he was hilarious. And at some point, he was the one that brought this question up about being in the music scene in bands together for a long time. And he was like, guys, when you're in a bloody band together and you're staying in a bloody hotel room, you've got to be able to bloody talk to each other. It's like, nah, mate, F off. You can't come over here. I've just shit myself. And I was like, and I was, I was thinking he was going to come with this like really, insightful answer. That I was like, but I absolutely just, I laughed my head off with him. But he was great. He was such a genuine guy.
A degree of honesty, isn't there?
Yeah, he certainly was. Yeah.
Regardless of how you tell them you need a bit of space.
Even you might need that space.
Even literally or metaphorically.
Yeah, he gave me a visual image for sure. It's one I just thought it's one of those moments you'd like, you'd read on an online fanzine in an interview with a band or something, and you see that part, you don't expect it, but yeah, it's hilarious. It's just completely random. just off it. Oh man. So I noticed you've got a gig coming up actually. In Camden Town, a lot of bands on there. Ghosts of Atlanta, so they're pretty cool. So, how did you get on the lineup for that one? Was it just people in the scenes?
I've been emailing so many different people trying to get gigs, and literally Alan was one of 2 people that got back to me out of a couple of dozen, 30 promoters that I've sent emails to. So Alan got back and said, this might not suit you, but you're more than welcome to play this one if you fancy it. And so we're not ones to turn down a gig. Doesn't bother us who we're playing. I mean, the majority of the bill are all death metal bands. That doesn't bother us.
We're being marketed as the calm before the storm.
But I mean, that's a good thing.
The aperitif.
Alan's put us on first, and he made it clear that we don't sound like. He's made it clear there's a distinction there between us and the other bands, which is good business sense on his part, and it means people know that we're not another death metal band. But I mean, like I said, we'll play with anyone. I grew up with death metal, I still listen to. I might be more discerning with what I listen to, and I might listen to more of what I listened to when I was 15 than something that came out a couple of years ago. But it's not like I could say I'm not going to play with death metal bands because we don't suit death metal. When I still listen to some death metal, it would feel hypocritical to me.
The thing is, I think what people forget, there are going to be people there. Well, of course, there's going to be people there. It wouldn't be very good if it wasn't. Just realised. Oh god. More than us. I'm on form today for getting questions, making obvious statements. Yay! But with the people that are there are going to be folks who are into other music who will give it a chance as well. So you are definitely right. Never turn down the chance to play with someone to appear on whatever show, because there is going to be someone who's going to come across you who's either hasn't heard of you before, like I hadn't, but I was like, no, I want to talk to them, or is open-minded to get into that music, because people forget, we were talking a little bit about kind of being open-minded to other music, criticism regarding from reviews, elitism, etc. People forget that you as musicians, and the same for people who are writers, they will draw inspiration from absolutely everything. I know I've been asking you a lot about that today, but it's going to be drawn from everything in life, personal experiences, family, relationships, music, everything. And people forget that it's not just going to be solely from this one avenue, because then I would imagine everyone is going to sound the same, make it pretty boring. There's nothing different, nothing for it to stand out. I read a quote, for example, once, and now I forget, because we're live, I forget in which book it was. Fed up, literally. Anyway, it was, yeah. There's an idea for the trailer. There's a moment, and it was something about people that write science fiction and fantasy, and it said the best ideas were actually from outside of science fiction and fantasy to try and make it original or different. So that it can be said for music. There are the people there. They're not just going to be right. We're not going to watch this. Okay, you might get one or two. I'm not going to watch this band, of course, but it's expanding that reach, and it's still opening up new ears. So it's only a positive. So I think you'd might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, of course. I think where the distinction has been made that we don't sound like the rest of them as well. Anyone who has heard us or doesn't like the idea of it or whatnot is just not going to be there that early.
Yeah.
And anyone who has heard us or whose interest has been piqued will turn up. I mean, it's a free show across, it's a free show on a Saturday in Camden. I mean, that's a good thing. You don't get them too often, and there'll be people milling about. And the worst that'll happen is we'll have half a dozen people there who actually want to listen to it. I mean, that will be the worst that happens. I mean, people aren't going to turn up just to be nasty and slag it off. They're just not turn up,
Yeah.
So I think if we were in the middle of the bill, it might be a bit disheartening that a couple of death metal bands play and it's quite busy, and then we go on. It's like five people and a dog at the front. And then we get off, and then all of a sudden there's 100 people back in the venue. That'd be worse.
I love it though, because it's the venue that I did my first gig with the River at. Yeah, I've got a soft spot for it.
Oh, that's very, very special. And I hope it goes well. Do you have any plans for the gigs to support the album around the UK?
We are still harassing,
begging people.
Yeah, we've got a couple of kind of bands who we've done gigs with before who kind of got quite happy to arrange a gig in their hometown and invite us to come and support. But we're feeling bad at the minute because we're like, yeah, come and play a gig down. Oh, hang on, we can't actually find one to book. So
yeah, that's the problem.
I think there's just so many bands in London that stuff is booked up so far in advance. It's really hard getting in.
London's very segregated as well. So like a lot of the promoters, unless you've got proof that you can pull a crowd, a lot of promoters just put on stoner nights or post rock nights or whatever scene it is, indie nights.
I've noticed a lot happen to that with hardcore down there.
Yeah, there's no cross pollination, and it's weird because like 20 or 30 years ago, you'd go to a gig. I remember when I was tape trading in the 90s, you would get doom metal bands on the same bill as a death metal band, as on the same bill as an industrial kind of band, like the more extreme kind of industrial.
Yeah.
GGFH or whatever. And no one batted an eyelid at it. It was just those were the bands at the time, and they might have shared something in common because they were all equally heavy or something. But you'd have three very different sounding bands sharing a bill, and you don't seem to get that so much anymore. I think it's down to a lack of venues where a lot of them have been steamrolled. So there's less opportunity. That's the play, and then the promoters obviously want to ensure a crowd. So
Yeah.
A lot of pubs that used to put a lot of gigs on, they're kind of focusing on things that they know will pull the just general crowds, like covers bands and things now. Which is fine. Because a lot of that's really fun and everyone will go out and have a great night. But yeah, it just makes it harder for bands who are a little bit off the beaten track to kind of get gigs.
It is, or ones that are a little more, as you said, even a little more obscure, or people maybe don't know as well. And it's sad because those kind of nights where you've got that mix of genres are cool, because you can go there and find music you've never heard before, or a band you haven't, and like, oh man, I'm really glad I went. But yeah, it's a bit like that up here as well, and it's sad because I feel there should be, because it's all branches, or it's all different branches of the root source of the tree. I mean, I was even thinking, hell, they could put like a folk metal festival, or with both folk metal, folk rock, and general folk music, and I think you guys would flow there very nicely. And that would be pretty cool. And
what is really good though is the fact that, I guess because the sounds evolved a bit and we have a bit more of a mix of sounds, it's quite easy to transfer a lot of the songs over to pure acoustic.
Very.
You can go out to open mic nights and things like that now, and yeah, that's kind of a fun avenue to explore. But yeah, it's good to get the full band gigs as well.
Yeah, it is, and there's no I don't think there's never no area you can exhaust to bring in new listeners and new fans. So I'm not going to behave myself now. I know you've been here a while, so I will let you go shortly. Don't worry. But so let me. I'm going to make sure I'm on the big screen for this as well. So movie time, movie fun. Right, it's going to do this. So
there we go.
Yeah. See the shelves over there.
It's so you can't see it here, but to my left, I've literally got the same. I've got DVDs just stacked high. I still intend to track down the black and white edition of Mad Max Fury Road, which they released a few years ago. I've got to have that as well.
Yeah, do we need to move it out the way?
Oh, it's okay. I still can see all of the titles. So
yeah, you're missing them.
Yeah, I respect the collection as a fellow movie nerd. I really do. So, what would be then? I know you mentioned some of these earlier and some of the answers. What would be to both of you some of your favorite movies, both serious, silly movies, thrillers, genres? Kind of a general overview.
Okay, who wants to go first? Okay, I'm going to kick off with Dark City.
Ooh, that's a cool one.
It's fantastic. I'm trying to get hold of the director's cut.
Oh yeah.
Really difficult to track down. But yeah, just absolutely love it. Just from the concept through to the way it's filmed and the lighting and everything about it. It's just got this amazing atmosphere.
Very sinister, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a few slightly suspiciously interesting special effects towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I just love it. Yeah. What else? Labyrinth.
Oh, some of the classics.
Yeah, just fantastic film. And for Christmas, I got the ultimate visual history of Labyrinth, which is just the most amazing textbook if you're interested in how it came about, and all the puppets and just all sorts of stories from the sets and the original concept artwork. It's beautiful. So yeah, that's my go-to. Well, I was going to say Christmas movie, but everything movie. And also, it saved me from having the worst panic attack ever when I was stuck on a plane on the tarmac in boiling heat in South Africa for about 2.5 hours.
Wow.
I stuck Labyrinth on, and I was in my happy place. And I didn't scramble my way off the plane. Labyrinth.
Did you get a chance to see? It's on Netflix, or the series where the puppets? I can't remember the name.
Oh, Crystal.
Yeah. What did you think of that? Curiously,
I really loved it. It was dark as anything. I was quite surprised how dark they went with it, and I think there was a few kind of lulls where perhaps it could have been condensed a little bit into a series. But overall, I thought it was really well done. I know a lot of people didn't rate it as much, but yeah, I really liked it.
It was one that got going a little bit later. It was like the first few episodes were okay, and then the next one was a bit dull. And the one after it was all right, and then one after it was a bit dull again. And then I think once it got to, was it the 7th episode or something like that, it picked up, and it's not so really good, but it finally got consistent.
Yeah, Netflix can be like that though. It takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
And is there any what would be some of your favorite silly comedies, Jenny, that you've seen?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm gonna have to refer to the DVD collection. I'll let Chris answer with his favorite movies whilst
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. I don't know. My favorite film is probably Amelie.
Right.
I love that film. On the opposite side of it, like I said, Dead of Night, the 1945 Eden film. I absolutely adore that. I like Night of the Demon, like I said before. The Japanese Ring as well. I mean, the American remake's all right as far as American remakes go, but the Japanese one is amazing. Then Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I like Wes Anderson films. I've not seen the most recent one, but The Life Aquatic I think is the best one. And The Royal Tenenbaums. I don't know. Comedy-wise, Airplane, Kingpin. I love it.
Kingpin's good. Yeah.
Kingpin's amazing.
I'm actually really stuck on the comedy one.
Oh, Christmas, you have to watch It's a Wonderful Life as well.
Oh yeah, I've watched that with them. That's a kind of a family tradition here. From my nana and granddad. Yeah, beautiful film.
Cry at the end.
Yeah. Did you? Speaking of comedy, I'm going to ask you this. Did you? And it's a British one, and I haven't watched it for quite some time. What did you think of Hot Fuzz? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, of course. And Shaun of the Dead as well.
Yeah, I love that.
World's End though. World's End left me a little bit cold.
I've never seen it. I've never actually seen it. No.
I won't give too much away because you might watch it and really enjoy it, but it wasn't up to snuff.
Oh, I don't.
But you might watch it and think it's the best of the three of them. You know?
I loved Hot Fuzz. That's one of my, aside from the Jackass movies and Bad Grandpa, just because of the silliness and people's reactions as well. But I think is it the scene where they're fighting in the supermarket in Hot Fuzz, and Timothy Dalton running. He's like the sinister. Was he the sinister manager of like the local? I think he's the manager of the supermarket. Yeah, and he runs past. I think he runs past one of the guys in the morning and says something like, "It's so cheesy and it's meant to be sinister, but it's hilarious." Something like, "Have you been in the store? Something they've got killer deals," something like that. And it's and because it's set in this like very quaint,
Yeah, cheese when it's done well is brilliant.
I'm from the West Country, so I'm like, that actually, it's very much like some places that I know of very well in the West Country.
Well, it was set in Wales, wasn't it? It was filmed in
Wales, yeah.
They filmed some of it in Stevenage, though.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I remember my Uncle David saying that they sectioned off some of Stevenage for it.
Yeah. There's God, I love comedy horror as well. One of my favorite recents, and I was saying this last night, was that I was so gutted when it got cancelled, was Ash versus Evil Dead, this series, based on the Evil Dead movies.
The series, yeah.
Oh, it might still be on Netflix. I think they did about 3 seasons, and they finished it with leaving a cliffhanger related to Army of Darkness, and I was so gutted. It's got the balance of horror, but absolute over-the-top comedy. And I've talked about it for years. I always am a big Bruce Campbell fan as well. That series, it is. There's some very gross moments, especially in the morgue. That's all I'm going to say. Really, really gross, but hilarious. And it's his reactions as well. That's what I like about those kind of movies. And I do have a soft spot for the Lord of the Ring movies as well. You know, I love them. And the one I've been mentioning to folks, the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie was good.
See, I had no idea that they'd done a Dungeons. I saw it on the side of the bus, and I was like, really?
Well, at first, I thought, no, this looks terrible. But it's kind of like a Sci-Fi Channel movie with a budget. The cheese works. There's a moment where, spoiler alert, folks, there's a pot belly dragon, and it's so overweight he can't breathe fire. And when like it literally looks like a bad D&D campaign on screen. And there's a moment where the party are like running away from this dragon as it's chasing them, and the dragon loses its balance, and then the camera pans back, and the way it's being shot, you just see this dragon. It's like with this huge pot belly rolling along. It's like a comedy version of the Mines of Moria.
That's when it just goes silly.
Yeah, because I've always wanted them, the nerd in me, to do a D&D movie set in the Underdark about Drist and the Drow, and I would find that fascinating, how he grew up in the matriarchal society that the Drow have, and I would love to see that. But the only thing that might go against it, because it's so dark and it's so sinister, and it probably would have to be R-rated. That's probably why Hollywood might shy off from that. It's the same with Warhammer 40,000. I can't remember who I was talking to recently. Someone who had come on the show. Sorry, I've forgotten. I know it was the last few days. Yeah. And we were saying that as much as that would be fantastic to see on the screen, and of course there's rumours that Henry Cavill wants to do something in that universe. It's just, how are they going to do it? Would the cost would be astronomical, and it wouldn't work if they toned it down as well. So
I used to work for Games Workshop back in the days.
100 million points.
Yeah. That's why they went out of business, and they're Warhammer now.
Did you have to do the usual whenever you go in a Games Workshop store and, you know, you've been in there for 30 seconds and they pounce on you, and that's it? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got that? Have you got that?
Yeah, I had a couple of different managers whilst I worked there, and some were very hot on making you do all of that, and then others were a little bit more chilled.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
You know, one of my gripes, and this is as much as I love 40k, I do kind of get frustrated with it, because I wish for once they would stop focusing on the Imperium and having 20 billion human armies and get some genuine aliens in there, instead of like being at the Tyranids, who are the only like real aliens, and the others just look too humanoid. And I'm just like, man, we don't need another Space Marine army, another set branch of the Imperium, another secret army of the Imperium that isn't supposed to exist, but yet is the most powerful thing ever. And then, of course, you've got Chaos. I'm like, yeah, so naughty Space Marines, yeah.
The manager had a Tyranid army, and there was just no point anyone playing him, because they just batter the heck out of every single person ever installed.
Yeah. I used to play as I'm going to contradict myself here, but being the nerd I am, it's going to be no surprise when I used to play as the Eldari, or both Craft World and the Dark Eldar and the Harlequins, and I just like elves, so it was like space elves. So yeah, that works.
Excellent.
But of course, you got shot, that was it. You were dead in 2 seconds because it was so fragile. Is there
a spaceship? I can't remember. They brought it out again in like early 2000s. The Eldar fleet was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh God, Battlefield. Was that in Battlefield? Battlefield Gothic. Yeah. Yeah. I never got to play that actually. Just Warhammer Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, 40k, and Blood Bowl. Now, that would make a good TV series. That would be interesting. So, is there? I know I've kept you here a long time, and I'm going to behave myself. So, is there anything else that you would like to shout out connected to any of the music that you're involved with, both the river and outside of that. And of course, and a quick reminder about the gig that's coming up soon as well.
So I think we would probably like to thank our friends who we're releasing a split EP with very shortly. Chris, did you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Well, yeah, we're just doing a split with The Human Condition.
Ooh.
Who, I don't know if you've heard them.
I've heard the name actually, but not the music yet.
They're very good. They're a very traditional sounding doom metal band, but they've got a little bit more about them than a lot of other ones. They've got some nice chord progressions, and Nathan's a very good singer.
Incredible.
As well. But we're doing a split release with them, which Cavernous are going to release as well, where we both. So their drummer John was our original drummer as well.
Right.
He was with us up until 2005, and then as I was saying to you off camera, he had to move back up north. So that's his baby, and he wanted to do a split vinyl initially. But obviously that's so expensive, and there's such a backlog trying to get vinyl processed these days. So we both recorded a song. It would have been, those songs would have been too long to be on a 7-inch. Like he was like, let's go old school, let's do a split 7-inch. Your songs don't fit on a split 7-inch. Our songs don't fit on a split 7-inch.
10 or nothing.
So it would have been a 10-inch, and he was like, don't like 10-inch records. And I was like, well, we're going to have more.
Neither did our wallets.
Yeah. And I was like, well, if it's going to be a 12-inch, or if it's going to have to come out on a CD, we'll probably have to do another song to make it worthwhile. And so we both ended up recording sort of a song live in the studio. That's what we were talking about, the song from the last album, where it's slightly rearranged.
Yeah.
So we've recorded that. So
there's one brand new song and one
one brand new song, and then a live. And we've both done a brand new song and a live in the studio one. So we're trying to keep it.
Keep a kind of red line running through the process, if not the actual.
Keep a uniform to it throughout the process. Artwork wise as well, we're working together on the artwork. So that's next, isn't it? And then probably an acoustic EP by the end of the year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then that's about it for future plans, isn't it?
Yeah,
we'd love to have loads more gigs, but until someone gets back to us.
If you can put a good word in for us anywhere.
Well, oh God, it's I wish I'll talk to you about that off air. I'm being diplomatic. But I'll put this out there, folks. Anybody who comes across this later and you run gigs either in the UK, Ireland, Europe, get in touch with us. You'll see the links to the river in the description when YouTube finishes processing it, which could take a day depending how temperamental YouTube feels at the time. Or shoot me an email and get at me, and then I can pass on, any dates that anybody could put you guys on. Be greatly appreciated. Vinyl as well. I think I was chatting with that about with Andy Clark from The Crawling. I think he was telling me that they had a vinyl version, I think, of their new album. I think, or was it one of the songs? I think it was the album with it was the album, but I think with a bit of a slightly different version of one of the songs on there. And I think these are becoming more sought after people now as like memorabilia and collector's items for the bands.
That's the thing. If we did a vinyl, because our song lengths are quite funny, we'd probably have to do a 3-sided vinyl. and then do you know what I mean? No, but you know what I mean? Do a double album. And then have like an etched side or something like that. Or we'd have to find some extra material. I think capacity on one side of the 12-inch is like 22 minutes or something.
Something like that, yeah.
My solo album pressed out. I did like a little limited release, sort of 100 CDs or something. The place I got that done at just started doing vinyl as well. So
Right.
write to them and just check out what their prices are. And then, we'll go from there.
Yeah. It's worth it as well. I've seen the artwork you can get on vinyl releases as well. I've even seen some folks like these collectors where, you know, a lot of people will put movie memorabilia up around the rooms, and they've got like vinyl releases from all these different kind of music. And I thought, man, if you had, because you probably need a mansion, but you could have a room with your movie memorabilia then vinyl. I thought, man, that'd be awesome. And it's kind of like history on a wall in a way as well. Of that music.
There's something about the record sleeve design, just different tape or CD or any of those. Yeah,
it's like the smell of books as well, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? Interesting. I will let you go in a moment. Don't worry. Be like, how did the interview? God, I think the word. I've said this to a few people now. Will be, oh God, that guy never should. So,
no,
thank you. I've got another band you on actually. Oops, destroying the place. Oh, all right, yeah, 60 minutes, so that's cool. I remember one of my lecturers at uni once for one of my assignments. He's very. I've never forgotten this, and it was very kind of him. He gave me a copy of Napoleon's memoirs, and I only had it for a day. It was he got it from Durham Library, and it was so delicate. You had to be so careful with it and the smell of it. And it was his memoirs when he was on the island of Elba, was it, when he was in prison? And God, it was fascinating. And I was like, God, wow, I've actually got this piece of history in my hand. And there was just something, as you were saying, Christian, about it. It still had that smell. It's the same if you Cardiff Castle, the Roman wall pad in Cardiff Castle, and if you go in the Roman area, and it's really strange, it's like being transported back 2,000 years in terms of the smell, and then you come out into the other area, and it's different. So I think there's something to be said for it. I think that's why we've had that resurgence, because for all music, it's kind of never gone away, I guess, in the punk scene, tapes and vinyl. But now for the color, how you can release different versions, like it can essentially become art to support the band as well. So it's really, I think it's very, very, very interesting stuff. I'm getting so carried away here. So I do want to thank you both for joining me today. It's been great. I've really enjoyed chatting to you both about music, film, and absolutely everything, and the wrestling as well. That was good. And
pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.
You're very welcome, and I mean it sincerely. You are welcome on here anytime. If I can help you in any way, just contact me. Come on the show. The same with your solo music, Jenny. You would be very welcome. Yeah. And, folks, definitely check out The River. If you can help set up some gigs, please get in touch. I will be back in about 60 minutes with Maidenhead from Boston, US. Total change of pace. They're a death thrash band, so that's going to be an interesting one. Get at me if you want to come on. Don't forget to follow, support, subscribe, and smash the mosh likes. And I shall see you on the next episode of Fed Up. Shout out to everybody. And again, thank you very much, Jenny and Christian. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Take care. See you soon.
It's great stuff.